The intersection between faith and politics is becoming more of a flashpoint in recent months after a discussion in the Catholic Church centered around President Biden and state lawmakers like Joe Cervantes taking the sacrament at Mass while publicly supporting a woman's right to choose. We'll touch on another example gaining attention here in New Mexico in a moment, but let's turn our panel first to what responsibility should religious institutions take when it comes to addressing individual political figures, either positively or negatively? Sophie?
Well, so the context for this is that Pastor Smotherman at a local Albuquerque megachurch made statements from the pulpit, or reported to have made statements from the pulpit in support of a city council candidate who happened to be at the church that day and apparently tabled in the hallway outside of the service. And, that this pastor apparently was pretty overt in saying, you should be voting for this particular candidate. There's sort of a formula that churches have followed in probably about the last 20 years of how they're sort of pressing up against the limits of the Johnson Amendment. The Johnson Amendment being, I think it's 1954, and an amendment to tax code that basically said if you're going to be a tax exempt church or nonprofit, then you can't engage in political speech. And there's been a fair amount of pushback, as I said, over about the last 20 years. That the formula that seems to be working for churches, and it's interesting to see how close Smotherman got to this is, our church supports a particular law or a particular idea. This politician also supports it, while this other politician does not. Right. Be sure to vote your values. And that churches have kind of gotten away with that. It's unclear to me whether that's because the IRS does not really have the resources or the temperament even to enforce the Johnson Amendment. But it seems to me that especially with what we saw this week, actually, in the Supreme Court and the arguments regarding abortion rights, that there may be an increase coming of churches pushing up against the Johnson Amendment to see if they can actually get their way on that, get that overturned. So it's an interesting time. It's not just because of the Biden Catholic Church thing, but it's also this Supreme Court seems primed and has already shown that it's willing to provide additional rights, is maybe not the right way to put it, but to be more deferential towards religion, and in particular Christianity, than courts in the past.
Gotcha. Hey, Kathy, let me read you what Pastor Smotherman was recorded saying in support of Lori Robertson. She's the Republican running against Tamala Feeblecorn to replace Diane Gibson. Interesting quote: "We need people like her," Robertson, who's sitting in the audience, as Sophie mentioned, "on the city council to make sure this crazy guy they call mayor doesn't continue to push his agenda." Wow. I mean, if that isn't politicking, I don't know what is. Your sense of that in sitting as a churchgoer, would you appreciate something like that if you were sitting in the congregation?
I would say that my father was a pastor, and kind of what he said was the gospel to many people that were sitting in the pews. And that's the same thing that's true here. And, just sort of reminds me of, all the other things that we're talking about here about how people are abusing their authority. And I think that this is a clear case of that, and that he knows it and is pretty defiant about the fact that I can do it if I want. That remains to be seen.
Good point there. Dan, if there isn't any legal action following up on this, will this situation have a realistic impact on the outcome of the District 7 runoff?
So I got to tell you that I go to church there, and I was there the day this happened.
Okay.
I've known Smotherman for almost 30 years now, and I would tell you that his comments in church are going to have far less impact on the outcome of the race than the media coverage is going to have on his comments for the outcome of the race. I think that's gotten 10-fold the number of people are talking about this and listening about this, and so. I think that just like is a belief of mine with capitalism and other things we've talked about, if people don't like what Steve Smotherman says in church, then don't go to church. Don't go to that church. And judging by the number of people that are attending his church, he's got pretty good supporters. So, it's not like we're lacking churches to visit in New Mexico, especially Albuquerque, New Mexico. So, I think at the end of the day, him saying that he's voting for somebody, him saying that the mayor's crazy, him saying that, we need more people like this person on the city council. I think the reason you don't see a lot of work, in my non-legal opinion, with the Johnson Amendment is it's a very, very tough slope for those guys to go into any court and try to decide the intent of what somebody said, what the outcome was of what they said. And I just think it's a difficult step for them. I think the day that, a pastor gets up there and says, that person, don't vote for them, vote for this person. If you only vote for this person, this is the things that are going to happen. I think that those are the people that are getting in trouble. Everybody else that's dancing around the whole, I'm for this person, that person's not doing what we want, all the scenarios we said. I just think the IRS it doesn't seem to be a fight that they've ever wanted to take up, and I'm not sure that they ever will.
Really? All right, let me read you. I see you both, Kathy. Let me just real quick. The regulations are pretty clear on this, Dan. You got to have a separate. You can't be doing these kind of things, because these entities under the law are, quote, are absolutely prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective public office. That seems pretty clear, Sophie.
I think so too. I will say that it goes beyond the impact of the Johnson Amendment goes beyond someone speaking from the front of a church,
right? And
it goes into issues of funding, and in particular, dark funding for political activity. Churches also under the Johnson Amendment are not able to spend money on political campaigns or political issues, and you see this maybe most clearly actually amongst nonprofits, where say the NAACP, for instance, they've got their charitable arm, and you can give money to their charitable activities, but there's a separate legal defense fund that is not tax exempt. Because churches are not required to divulge who gives them money, if they are, unencumbered by the Johnson Amendment, such that they can spend money, which is considered speech in our political system, that then becomes an avenue for dark money that can't be tracked. And this is one of the real concerns about chipping away at the Johnson Amendment. We focus on the speech of individual pastors or individual religious leaders, whether or not they're speaking on behalf of their church, whether they've crossed the line. But this is the dark underbelly.
Kathy, I got to wonder if the loser here has a legal case. Dan mentioned before, it may not be as impactful as people were trying to make this out to be. But if she loses, might she not have an avenue to come back and say, you know what, the nonprofit status at this church right here really should be under question?
I think if she has time to pick it up, maybe she would. But what I would say, too, is that there are not a whole lot of people who are even aware of the fact that we have these runoff elections coming. We haven't had enough people voting. So I think it's okay for us to be talking about it. Definitely, it's okay for us to be talking about this issue more broadly, as Sophie mentioned. And I just keep going back to, people go and read. There's a book called One Nation Under God, How Corporate America Invented Christian America. And it talks about Christian libertarianism and how capitalism and Christianity have become inextricably bound, and how pastors started sort of doing these kind of things from the pulpit. So I think that, we need to understand the context of how these things are happening, why they're happening, and what the harm is. So, and just like Dan said, that if we don't like what Smotherman says, we don't have to go to church there. If you don't want to have an abortion, then you don't have to have one, but we don't necessarily need laws saying that you can't have one.
Thank you all for this discussion. It's been really interesting this week. Be sure to let us know what you think about any of the topics the line covered this week on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages. You can also watch our past Facebook Live interviews, including my chat about the upcoming special at the Roundhouse in Santa Fe.